So here's what I start with. Here are 3 laptop battery packs. And this is the source of my lithium-ion batteries that I use to power flashlights and power drills and make battery packs for that stuff. And this video will show how I take these things apart. It's kind of brutal, and you need a kind of, I wouldn't say a special tool, but the way you start is you take a good look at it, and right along here you can see a seam, and if you look over toward the front, that seam continues right along there. And what we're going to do is we're going to surgically, using my special tool, go along that seam and open the carcass up. So here we've got the victim, I guess you'd best call it, with its seam, and it's mounted in this vise, not squeezed all that hard, but firm, just so that you can work on it. And here's the special tool, and it's like a scribe, and the pointy bit is actually pretty sharp, and it basically goes along that groove. Let's see, I can do this with one hand. And what you're doing basically is removing the plastic so that you weaken that seam so that you can open the thing up. Best done with 2 hands, but the trick is holding the camera. You can see the plastic stuff, little shavings gathering on the tool. So you just keep doing that until you eventually start to see the innards of the victim. And you do this carefully because you don't want to damage the thing. And there you can see the case is now split open. So you've weakened it, and you can see it's opened up where it was the weakest, but you can see at the ends, I haven't quite taken it right down far enough. So you keep doing that, and then you'll see what happens in the next scene when I open her up. Okay, so here I've scored the seam all the way along. Then what I've actually done is scored the seam on each end, and frankly you just peel the baby open like that, and yeah, there's cracking and noise, but there you got. Those are 6 lithium-ion cells. And that's how you get the access to the batteries. And trying to do this with one hand is a bit of a challenge, as per usual. But there's some electronic circuits in there which are regulators and heat sensors and a bunch of other stuff. But frankly, those are all of no interest, because what we're interested in is these cells. And the next sequence will be when the cells are out of the carcass. So here I've very gently, using a small screwdriver, you get in there, and you have to pry them a little bit, but you gently do it so you don't really bugger anything up. And there's usually some sticky stuff holding them in, But that's what they look like, and they're connected in series parallel. So each of these two pairs of cells is in parallel, two negatives and two positives, but then they are connected in series. Now each of these cells gives you roughly 3.7 or roughly 4 volts. So there's 4 volts, 8 volts, and 12 volts. And that's really neat because, as I've indicated before in a previous video, you can use a computer power supply scavenged like one of these. In the previous video you saw how you could make a really nice benchtop power supply out of one of these babies. And then you can use that to charge these cells. So here's the kind of things I have used these lithium-ion cells, 3.7, roughly 4 volts each, starting from small to big. People throw these things out mainly because the NiCads in here are no good, and usually there's either 1 or 2 of them, which gives you 2.4 volts. But the motors seem to have no problem dealing with the 4 volts. That you use one of these for this electric screwdriver. This one, I think I put 2 cells in there, and it's nice, handy little fella. And then there's a bigger one, which is I think this one is for 12 volts, but you can see it's a heck of a lot bigger. In these two, I was able to put the lithium-ion cells into the case. Here, what I did was I cut off the part that the battery would fit into, and you can see I've reused part of the carcass to contain the thing. I just wrapped them with masking tape, paper tape, and made a little kind of a hanger or a keeper out of a coat hanger. And here you can see the wires, the red for positive, blue, black for negative. And in this case I have 2, 4, 6, 8, and actually there's pairs of cells in parallel, and then these are connected in series. So there's 4, 8, 12, 16 volts, and this thing is rated as a, if you can see that, 12 volt machine, but has no problem running on the 16 or 17 volt battery. It's 2-speed, it's a lovely Makita thing, and great heavy, premium type of drill. And they were throwing them, all of these without exception, 0 cost to me. And then this baby was being thrown out, and it's an impact driver. And again, in this case, the case was big enough I was able to hide the lithium-ion cells in the case. And what I did was to take it apart, take the battery case apart. There's screws, and then if you're careful enough, you can figure out which one is positive, which one is negative, and that's very important. Otherwise you bugger up the speed controller on these things, and reuse it. And then when you're charging it, you just put alligator clips on those from your charger. So I've got lots of these. You can see another one there in the background. There you can see a whole bunch. Just they're everywhere around my shop. And I have not paid a dime for any of these. Not paid a dime, from big to little. There's another. So it's and it's so handy to have multiple cordless tools, because you know, if you drill a pilot hole, then you drill the holes for the shank of the screw, then you countersink, and then you finally drive it. Well, that's 4 functions. Well, if you have 4 separate machines, it makes you much more productive. And as I said, don't throw, once you've taken those carcasses apart, don't throw them away, because you use those carcasses because the batteries fit very nicely in there, and you need them to make some sort of a carrying arrangement or a keeping arrangement for the batteries. So I just happen to put some blue insulation on this piece of coat hanger. So there you have it. That's what I use the lithium-ion cells for. At least this is one of the uses. And so here's some of the final stages. You can see the cells have now been taken apart. You just take a pair of side cutting pliers and trim them off. What I usually do is I mark them right away so I know which side is positive, which side is negative. And then to charge them, I use the, as I said on a previous video, I explained how to make a nice power supply. And here I've set it up so that from this point, or sorry, starting at this point here, this is the minus 12 volt terminal, and this is the plus 12 volts, so I'm getting roughly 24, 23 volts across there. And actually what I've done is I've got this very large variable resistor to control the amount of current. And so what I normally would do is, you know, as I said, figure out which is negative and which is positive. In this case, negative, positive over here. I've set it up, and you connect it, and you can see the needle starting to show. Now let me do that again. You can see there's the, and then you want to set it up for a little bit more. So this meter is set up so that it's about half an amp full scale, and you want to charge these things. I don't know, this is 500 milliamps, so 400 milliamps for a couple of hours will do it. And that's how you charge them up. And everything, these things are for free. They're junk. You're recycling them basically. The batteries are for free, the carcasses, the machines. So what's not to like about this deal? They leave that for a while. I suppose I could put a timer on this thing, but that's starting to get too finicky for me.